Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Confrontation of Calling, the Conversation. I'm so excited for today's, I guess I'm calling these episodes today's episode. I have an amazing guest joining me. I'll give it a couple of minutes for people to join. I see my guest has already joined. But before I bring her up, Cassie, you can just request to go live with me, and then I think I can add you. But as we're waiting for people to come and join, if you have not had an opportunity to watch last week's episode, last week's version, please do so. Please go back and watch it. It was a special edition for me. I actually had the opportunity to say a little bit about my confrontation of calling story. It wasn't everything, but it's what I felt led to share. So if you're new to who I am, or you just want to find out more about why I created this brand in the first place, it's definitely saved live. You can either see it on my page, the Diane Reed Experience, or you can see it on my YouTube channel, the Diane Reed Experience. And here we go. I think Cassie's requesting. So yes, a chance, go back and watch last week's episode. I think it was a wonderful one. I have some clips too that I posted too. I just, said whatever needed to be said. So yeah. So for those of you, and Cassie's joining. Hey, Cassie,
Hi,
how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So for those of you who are newer to me, before I introduce my guest, hello. Hi, I'm Diane Reed. I am a CEO, coach, author, speaker, consultant. I always have to remember all the things. But above all, I'm a child of God and I'm just obedient to Jesus Christ. Um, so that's the only reason why I'm any of those things. Um, so I am the creator of the Confrontation of Calling, and I created this brand because I feel like there's multiple times in our lives, but very key pivotal points where we're presented with a version of ourselves we never imagined ourselves being. And it's usually the Lord calling us into who He created us to be. And I found that a lot of people I knew, a lot of people around me, including myself, were going through similar themes in life. The theme of, letting go of self-perceptions that no longer serve you in this season, letting go of friendships and relationships that aren't serving you, compared to who the Lord is calling you to be in this moment. And I feel like it's something we're not having enough conversations about. So this is why I created the Confrontation of Calling, the Conversation, this IG live series, because I wanted to have conversations with amazing people who chose to accept the call, chose to follow what the Lord was saying about them, and be very authentic and transparent about what that looks like, so that you're not alone as you're confronting your calling, and so you have the resources and the support necessary to say yes. So today I have with me Cassandra Williams. I don't think I've ever said your full name.
Nobody ever
uh,
does.
but I will be professional and say Cassandra Williams. Before I asked her to say anything, I want to read her bio. So Cassandra Williams is a registered neonatal ICU nurse. She works with the little babies, um, and she's a women's healthcare nurse practitioner. She is a published author and an admin. She is the author of Tell Your Story, The Lily Speaks, available now on Amazon. Go check that out. And currently, she has a devotional on the way, which I hope she'll talk more about during this live. Um, Cassandra has overcome suicidal ideation and self harm. She loves a good book. and she enjoys being by the water and being outdoors, admiring God's creation. She desires to be an advocate for young women of color and to see them healed and whole. So thank you so much for joining me,
You are so.
Cassandra.
You can call me Cassie, please.
Okay. I was like, I don't know how you want to be great. So yeah, I call her Cassie. So hey Cassie, how's it going? Is there
Good.
anything else you want to add outside of your bio that you want people to know about you before we jump into the conversation?
Um, I
Nurse.
think that's pretty much it. Yeah,
Okay. I always want to give the opportunity. Yeah. So how are you doing? How's your Monday going?
it's going good. I went with my mom to the doctor, and we had lunch. Then I did some studying, came back home, studied for a little
Okay.
bit. Yeah, but pretty chill deal. I'm off this week, so
Oh,
it's good.
nice.
Yeah.
Vacation. Thank you for spending your vacation with me. So yeah, so let's jump right into it. So I love to always start these conversations with this first question or statement, and then we'll just jump in from there. This is a casual conversation. So describe to me a time in your life where you felt like you were confronted with a version of yourself that you never imagined yourself being. And we'll start there.
Okay, I would say I'm gonna go like career wise and then like spiritual wise.
Absolutely.
So growing up, I always wanted to be a teacher. Right up until I got to college, I was like, I'm gonna go into education. I want to do teaching, and then like somehow nursing like piqued my interest. And I was never like the type of person to be like outgoing. I kind of refer to myself as more introverted, and that for me was just kind of like nurses are very like vocal, have to be advocating for their patients. You're dealing with doctors, you're dealing with a bunch of different people. You have to be able to speak up and all those things. And I was never that type of person. I was always very quiet, very shy. And I kind of get that from my mom because she was very much reserved. So I kind of took on a lot of how she was, and carried that into like early adulthood, and early like even into teenage years, and then even in like the spiritual aspect, like accepting the call to intercession and like even like being prophetic and all those things. I kind of was like, that's not me. Like I knew it was me, but I was kind of just like, I cannot do this. Like I don't like the way I sound. This is not gonna work. Like I'm just gonna stay in the background and we're gonna be great. And God was just like, no.
So in both of those situations, going from wanting to be a teacher to deciding to commit to being a nurse and being an intercessor, moving more to the forefront, what were some of the emotions and self perceptions you had to let go as you're like choosing to accept this version of you?
Um, so like I was saying before, just because my mom is very like reserved, I kind of like took on a lot of like her personality and like how she was. So like just being very timid, very reserved, very to myself. And it was very much difficult. Like it was always a back and forth because like I know that I'm called to intercession. I know that I'm called to these things, but it's just like I'm just gonna not.
Mm.
Gonna not like, and it was just me being very much disobedient and allowing the enemy to get into my head and like you don't sound like the people that are out there praying, you don't sound like the people that are out there prophesying, you don't look like them, like all of the things. And I was kind of like, okay, like I can just stay in my little corner and do the things, and then really that kind of made me operate from a place of perfection, because I was kind of like, if I don't do it this way, and if it's not like perfectly executed, that I can't do it at all. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Even the live that I did last week, I was explaining my story,
Mm-hmm.
and similar to you, of just like, my the way I move, the way I speak is not like other people, and the Lord really had to be like, I didn't call you to be like other people. I created you as I created you because there are people who need to hear your voice in the way that you speak, how you speak,
Mm-hmm.
in the tone that you speak it in.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's very true for you as well. What helped you kind of say yes, even though you had those voices in your head, the enemy trying to convince you out of your position, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
What made you say yes?
Um, so really, and I feel like I've heard this a lot of times, but more like I feel like Apostle really says that a lot of times. Also, just like there are people waiting on you to like get into place, and like there are people that need what you have, people that are like waiting for you to, you know, align yourself with the call of God for you to be in position because you're needed. Like there are people that are coming after you that are going to look up to you. They're going to be like, all right, if Cass can do this, if Diane can do this, then I can do this too. If they can step out on faith and be bold and courageous and pray, prophesy, whatever it is, then I can do it too. And it's not so bad. And kind of like the scripture that says creation waits for the manifestation of the sons of God. It's just like, yeah, okay. Like, and that really like sticks to me all the time when I'm just like, I don't want to do this, but it's always like, all right, there's somebody like, even if it's one person, like there's somebody that you're going to impact. There's somebody that's looking up to you. There's somebody that needs the gift that's on the inside of you to, you know, succeed and prosper. And people are dying, waiting on you to get in place while you're just out here taking your time, being disobedient, doing whatever you want to do. So, yeah.
I mean, just casually saying, yeah, they're out there dying for real.
Yeah.
And when we talk about accepting our calling and accepting who God is calling us to be, we always have to have the greater why in
Mm-hmm.
mind. And you spoke about how your greater why was understanding that like people are waiting for you. And I think when we talk about calling and when we talk about purpose, it can be very self-focused. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I need to be the boss, I need to be the CEO, I need to be all these things. But you're actually in those positions, in those titles, in order to serve other people. So it's not,
Mm-hmm.
your calling isn't even just about you. It's
Yeah. It's
mainly
not about you at
about
all.
you. Exactly. Like you're called to be a solution in the earth, and people are in dire need of what you have to offer, how you offer it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want you to go a little bit in on, because you didn't talk about being an author. So
Okay.
you have your book, tell your story, The Lily Speaks, and
Mm-hmm.
now you're making, you have a new devotional that you're about to release. Did you ever see yourself as an author?
So actually, I grew in school. I loved writing. Like outside of math class, like English was my favorite class in high school. Not so much in college because I didn't really like writing papers. But I was capable of doing them and I was able to execute them well. But seeing myself as an author, I no, no. Like I love to write. Like I have like I used to write poems when I was younger. I have like like spiral notebook of poetry that I wrote, and different like poems. And I used to write like I don't know, like I would call them like short stories, just like making up things with characters and stuff. And so I never really like consider that to be like something that I would be doing later on in life, as an author and like publishing a book, let alone telling my story and putting my business out there for the world.
Mhm.
But yeah, I never thought about like going down that route of being author. So that was completely like that too was a challenge and a struggle because it was kind of like you know you come from like a Caribbean family, and like my mom is like very reserved. She's like, and I like when I told her about it, she was kind of like, well, why do you have to like you know put all of your information? It's kind of like keep everything to yourself, keep it within your small circle. And I was kind of like, I can't. Like there are people that need my testimony of me struggling with suicidal attempts, me struggling with self harm, me struggling with lust. There are people that are going to read the book, and you know it's going to help them. So I kind of have to do it, and that was like a like back and forth. And it took me long to write the book. It took me about I started writing the book I think in 2018 or 2019, and I didn't publish it until 2022. So
Wow.
yeah, because I was just like, okay, I was really back and forth with it. I'm like, you really want me to like, you really want me to say this, God? You sure? Are you sure?
It's like, yeah, say
Like,
that.
are you sure? And you know, the enemy's like, well, what are people gonna think about you when they find out all this stuff? What are people in the church gonna say about you? Like all of the things that like trying to talk me out of it. But I'm glad that I wrote it. I'm definitely glad.
And I'm glad you wrote it too, because Like Anna Lee Jackson said, we need your 10 testimony. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so I want you to dig a little deeper in kind of the reaction that you received. So you spoke about how, you know, you had to have a conversation with your mom because I'm sure your story included her. So
Hmm.
courtesy, you know, to speak about who you're writing about, even though the story is yours.
Right.
Um, did you have to have any conversations with any other people once it was released? People found out new information about you. Did your relationships change as a result of you saying yes to writing this book and publishing it? And what did that?
Um, so I think like outside of my mom, like I spoke to my best friends, they're on here, about it, and like because they're like in it, but I changed everybody's names that are in the book.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, just like my mom, and then like once the rest of my family found out about it, like my aunts and stuff, they were all very supportive. They were, sharing with me things that they dealt with. That they were like, well, you could have talked to me about this. Well, you could have, all of that stuff. And I'm like, well, as a teenager, I'm not really trying to talk to anybody but my friends. So like, I don't really want your advice. But the the support actually was not what I expected. Like everybody was pretty much, proud of me for sharing. And the people that had something to say, I kind of just like don't speak to them anymore, or kind of had to like let go of those relationships because it was kind of like, okay, well, you're not supporting me. The point is not me putting my business out there. The point is me sharing my story to help somebody else.
Yeah.
So having to let go of those relationships, I kind of was just like, okay, I'm just gonna let them fall to the side because they're not supporting me. They're not allowing, like, showing me how to grow from this and how to be better and push forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a reality that we do have to speak about. I think as we talk about like cutoff culture, it's very much like, oh, if they're not serving me, cut them off. But there is a reality to people just not being able to grow with you as
Mm-hmm.
you're growing. So as you're choosing to say yes, some people do fall on the wayside, and it's just because they can't handle where you're going, and they can't handle where the Lord's sending
Right.
you. And
And I'm type like, I want everybody to go with me. Like, I want all my friends to be here, but it's kind of like, okay, you have to let them go. Like,
yeah,
they're not.
yeah,
Yeah.
talk a
Like
little bit more.
Apostle had said, I think last week he was like, some people are your assignment. Like, they're not. You're not supposed to be friends with them. Not buddy buddy. They're strictly your assignment. And I had to learn that too, like, because I'm very like welcoming and opening and like trusting people and all of the things, and had to realize, okay, well, maybe this might have been an assignment
Mm,
and not a friend. And sometimes I had to learn that the hard way. And I didn't want to let go of certain people in my life. But once I let them go, it was kind of like, do you now see why?
yeah.
Do you now see why? And I was like, okay,
It's like,
I
okay,
see why.
I see. And there's nothing like choosing to grow and choosing to say yes to your calling, choosing to obey the Lord, that'll kind of force you to start defining the relationships in your life, because
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a type of shock that happens when like people you love don't really understand where you're going. And it's
Right.
like, wait, I really, like you said, I really want you to come with me. Like,
Yeah. Like
what not?
I'm for all of it. And even so, like sometimes God had to allow like, because I wouldn't let them go, he had to allow them to hurt me for me to realize, like, I told you
Mm-hmm.
before, let them go. If you would have just let them go peacefully, gracefully, you wouldn't be dealing with this hurt now. And it's like, okay, but you don't have to do that though.
He's like, I did though. And it's okay because it'll still work together for your good.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you make a good point of like, you kind of did go through some of that extra pain because you didn't choose
Mm-hmm.
to let them go when the Lord told you to let them go. So just encouragement to anyone who is dealing with relational shifts in their lives. Just choose to listen to the Lord and adjust accordingly, because both sides are going through unnecessary pain, because you have people
Right.
on the other side who think like, oh no, I'm gonna be with her forever or whatever, or maybe they're people who are manipulating you and
Mm-hmm.
using you, and it only took this situation for it to be realized. So it's best to just release them when it's time to be released, so that there's less unnecessary pain.
Yeah. And
Less.
I think about it, like, I could have saved so much time and so much hurt if I would have just listened the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, that's good. And I want you to speak a little bit more because you said that one of the lies the enemy was telling you is that like your family, like people wouldn't understand your story. But the truth
Mm-hmm.
was it actually gave an opportunity for your family to come to you and be honest about their personal
Right.
struggles. So the lie that the enemy was telling you was indeed the opposite of what
Mm-hmm.
actually happened. You had people who were able in your family to get free because you stated your testimony. So,
Right.
what did that do for you as you continue to say yes to the Lord? Just having that support from your family of like, yeah, I went through my own, issues, and now they're sharing with you. What was that experience like for you?
I think it was a very positive experience. But I have two of my aunts. Like, one is not saved, and then one is saved. And then the one that's not saved, she was really like, like, well, when I was growing up, I struggled with, self-image and self-harm and all those things, and like had to be on medication and all those things. And she was like, you could have talked to me. Like, she's very open about it. She's very like supportive about it. Then my other aunt, who is saved, she was just like, yeah, we have to get you to all of the conferences and all the things. You can like come with
Mm-hmm.
me, because she's the author also. So she was like, you can come with me. You can do like speaking engagements. And I kind of was like, I didn't get it. So yeah, they were very supportive.
Yeah.
And even my mom, like when she came around and like realized, like, I don't believe that she ever read the book, but she was very supportive in like telling like coworkers and like other members of her church about the book that I wrote, and like getting support from them. So she did like come around and was supportive after a while.
That's good. That's good. And I wanted you to say that because I feel like that's a lie that a lot of us hear. Like, if you tell your testimony, you're going to be judged. If you tell your
Mm-hmm.
testimony, if you tell your story, people are going to look at you differently. And the truth is, the ones who are called to your life, they will embrace you for all that you are.
Right.
And the people who aren't, now you know how to
Right.
categorize. Now you know that okay, these are people who can't go with me as I continue in my story.
Mm-hmm.
And the enemy always wants to use what you hold in the dark against you. Anything that you're refusing to share, whether it's to the Lord or to other people, he's always going to try to use that to isolate you even more. He's always going to try to use that as a way for you to not tell your story and keep others in bondage because so many
Mm-hmm.
set free from you saying your story.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage you that no matter what you've been through, there are people who can relate to your story, and there are people currently going through what you already got through
Mm-hmm.
that need to hear your story in order to get free. So I want to encourage you, don't believe the lies of the enemy. Tell your story if you've been called to tell your story, and do so boldly. Do so despite the conversation that's happening in your head. Choose to believe
Yeah.
what the Lord is saying about you.
Yeah. And it like, I even the support from like my coworkers, they were all like, "Oh yeah, like this is great!" Like, and it was unexpected because the majority of my coworkers, I would say for the most part, aren't believers, like, or they have different beliefs than what I do. And it was just like an overwhelming support from my coworkers as well. Like, they were coming to work like, "Look, I got my book," and I'm like, "Okay, put
So,
it down." And they're like telling all the other coworkers who didn't know, they're like, "Yeah, she wrote a book. You should get it. It's on Amazon." And they were also very supportive. But I was just like, "Wow, okay." I'm like, "This is a lot, but."
mm-hmm.
I'm not used to all of this like stuff, but it
Yeah.
was good to see them also, like, outside of my close friends at work, seeing like other people supporting, and like they were just like passing it around like, all right, when you're done, I'm reading it. I'm gonna read it. Like, so it was good.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Um, I'm gonna pivot a little here. So, as you were choosing to kind of accept your calling, as you're choosing to, write these books, I feel like every time that we choose to say yes to something on a larger scale the Lord is calling us to do, there are moments of kind of like the best way I could put it is isolation,
Mm-hmm.
but isolation in a way where you're being set apart, separated for a particular time in order for the Lord to do work on your heart, do work
Mm-hmm.
on your mind. So, um, did you experience any type of separation from like the people in your life so that the Lord could kind of give you the strength to write your story or to move into being a nurse or to move into being an intercessor? Did you experience any moments of separation?
Yeah, definitely. I think earlier this year, like late last year, earlier into this year, God had me like on a like season of consecration, and really just like focusing, like zoning in. Like, yes, I still had my friends, my close friends that I talked to, my best friends, but it was really more so of like me like locking in and like taking the time to be intentional, like studying my word, praying, fasting, finding myself in nature outside, like just listening to God, like praying, talking with Him, and really like, the things that I consider, things that I do that I consider, not terrible, but like putting those things aside, like social drinking, hanging out late, those kinds of things, putting those things aside for the season of consecration so that the Lord can really, heal the parts of my heart that were not healed and really prepare me for what He's asking me to do, and for what He's calling me to do.
Yeah. And I think that's a part in the journey, for people who don't like being alone or being separated or having to give up certain things for a
Mm-hmm.
particular time. It can be very scary. It could be like, wait, why can't I do the things I used to do? Why can't I be around the people that I love? Like, why can't I do all those things? And you said it was so that you can get deeper understanding in the things of the Lord, which is what
Mm-hmm.
consecration means. Is it's going deeper into things of God and separating yourself. I don't want to say complete isolation because, like you said, you still had your close relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the difference between isolation and
Right.
consecration. Isolation and consecration. You still have your key groups, but the lifestyle that you're living is kind of refined. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of um, different for a particular season so that you can focus on more of your internal being rather than everything that's going on outside of you. So, just an encouragement that those particular seasons are necessary in order to refine you for your purpose, in order to refine you for where you're going. Because the truth is, I didn't know we were going here, but I guess we are. The truth is, there's a lot of warfare that comes to saying yes to the Lord. And granted, we fight an already defeated enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So the fight is already won. It's just we have to maintain our place in victory. But the consecration period, the separation period, taking time to go deeper into things of the Lord prepares you to walk boldly and confidently and equipped to do all the things
Mm-hmm.
that the Lord called you to be. So, what are some of the things that you learned in that period of consecration about yourself, about the Lord? Why was that so necessary to who you are today?
Um, so the Lord, He really had to show me like you are literally like you're set apart, like you're not like everybody else. Because like there would be things that I would do, and like you feel the conviction, or like you feel like right away you're like repenting, and I was like, well, Susie over here is doing the same thing I'm doing, and nothing's happened to her. Like she's living her best life, serving you, doing whatever she wants. But me, the moment I do something wrong, it's like, okay, so God really was working on my character,
Mm-hmm.
really allowing me to, grow in the fruit of the spirit, become mature in the ones that I'm not so mature in. Like I'm not the most patient person in the world. Like I think I'm patient, but not really. Self-control, working on like my temperance and all of those things, really like maturing me as a whole person, not just like, um, in one area, but in all of the areas of my life, making sure that I'm whole and mature and that my character is reflecting him and making sure that I look like him, I sound like him, I
Mm.
talk like him, I walk like him, I love like him, live like him, like all of it in all of the areas. And sometimes it's difficult because it's like, well, I just want to be like a regular person. Like, I just want to give this person attitude, and you're telling me to be kind, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
okay. It's definitely a work in progress, and it's definitely like some days are better than others, and it's growth all across the border.
It's growth. And I love what you said. The consecration period was more so building your character. So
Mm-hmm.
before the Lord even calls us to do a thing, he calls us to be a thing. He calls us to be more like
Mm-hmm.
him, that when we are called to do the things that he's called us to do, we look like him. We look like his son. Because if we're being sent out to be lights of the world, we have to have the light in us and cultivate
Right.
in us so that when we go to the dark places, our light can shine brightly. But that doesn't happen if you don't take the time to cultivate your light, to cultivate yourself in the things of the Lord, to build your character, so that you can handle those times when you're
Mm-hmm.
tried.
And it's
Like
literally
you
like
said.
God always has to remind me, like, remember who you are. Like, wherever you go, remember who you are. My mom always told me, like, growing up, she's like, remember who you are and whose you are. Like, who you belong to. You have to, like, even at work, like, I have to remember, like, okay, my manager is trying me, but I have to remember who I am, who I'm representing, who I belong to, who put me here in this position in the first place. And just being reminded of that and to reflect and look like him, even if I'm not being treated that way.
Yeah. And boy, is that hard to do. I'm gonna be so honest. And we're not saying that like we get it right all the
Right.
time. Like that is not true. But I think the heart posture is also what's key too, because sometimes we get it we miss the mark.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the Lord had to talk to me about some things the other day, and it was just like, wow, how grateful I am to be able to be convicted, to be able to be corrected. Um, and honestly, what I had to do was really secure myself in the love of the Lord. And I'm still learning to do that, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest. Because I think when we, especially growing up in a Caribbean household, as you know, it can be very performative,
Yeah.
as you're trying to do the things right for your parents, and um, it can seem like love is transactional, and
Mm-hmm.
it's no fault of our parents. It's just, I think, how we received, the love. I can only speak for myself, and then
Right.
you can see, but how I received it was, okay, if I do something right, I'm loved. If I do something wrong, I'm not loved. And when you talk to me about a father God, I'm thinking he's the same
Yeah.
way.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the character building is a lot of you accepting the Lord loves you and has loved you from the beginning of time. So
Yeah.
before you ever did anything, he loved you. And despite what you do, he loves you. And it is his love, is out of his love, is out of who he is, that he continues to transform us. But it's always from a place of love. It's never from a place of shame. It's never from a place of guilt or punishment. It's always from a place of love. So I want you to talk about kind of your experience in embracing the love of the Father, and how that has changed how you show up in the world.
Um, so yeah, so I had a not had I have a natural father who wasn't always as present.
Mm-hmm.
And then so prior to knowing the love of God and experiencing God's love, I thought that, like similar to what you said, that God would show up in the way that our natural parents did. And that was how I would look at God. If I did something good, like he would love me. If I did something bad, he would not love me, if in that moment at least. But then God really had to, probably like during my college years, show me that he was Abba. And so now, like, me being able to really understand that he is Abba and that he loves me, period, regardless. Like, today he'll love me. Tomorrow, if I mess up in 5 minutes, he's still going to love me. He already knows. But just really knowing how to embrace that love. And I remember feeling just like the overwhelming feeling of God's love, like the overwhelming, like the reckless, like pursuit of like chasing after me, won't stop until he gets me, like leaving the 99 to come and look for a me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
huh? Like you
Yeah.
left for me. Okay. Like that kind of love. And just, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just so like just so grateful, and just so like even to know that kind of love, and to know that God will always love me, and that he's going to correct me and discipline me and prune me, and continue to chasten me because he loves me, because he wants me to reflect me. It's just such a beautiful thing.
It
And
is.
that has helped me to show up to really desire to love others the way that God loves me, to see them how he sees them, even regardless of hurt, regardless of forgiveness, regardless of if we don't speak, but really being able to show up and love them with the love of Christ. I don't have to speak to you every day, but if I can just love you with the love of Christ because he loved me, then yeah.
That's so good. That's so good because how we receive God's love is how we love ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and it's how we love others. And I think it's such a key part also of building our identity in Christ and building our identity, period, so that when we do walk in our calling, when we do the things the Lord has called us to do, we're not doing it out of a place to receive love from other
Mm-hmm.
people. Because that's what happens. And that's what's happening in this world. Because people don't know who they are, they're searching for themselves in other people. They're searching for themselves in affirmation from other people, approval from other people. And people's people are fickle. They're going to change
Mm-hmm.
every day. So now your identity is based off of something that's so unstable. And then we're wondering why there's like an identity crisis in the world,
Right.
right? So as we talk about like receiving the love of the Father, the love of the Lord, it is so key as you're walking into your calling and you're choosing to say yes, that you know that he loves you before you do anything,
Mm-hmm.
before you walk into anything. He loves you, and
Yeah.
he wants to equip you and prune you and correct you, and it's coming from a place from his love. It's never coming from a place of anger
Yeah.
or um yeah, I'm harping a lot on punishment. It's never from a place of punishment. Like he he corrects those that he loves. He
Yeah.
corrects. So if you see that your child, if you see that your friend is going down the wrong path, of course you would say something to
Right.
them, even though if it may not be received well in the moment, but you know it's good for them. You know it's good that they have this wisdom, they have this advice in order to stay in the path that is best for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's so key as we're talking
Yeah.
about the Father.
I think that
Um, mhm.
sorry, I think that also helped me like love myself, like because growing up, like I always had like a perception of myself, or like I should be this way, or just like little things that I was like not happy with. But as I got older, I was able to really understand like self love and how to love myself, and that I was created in God's image, and that I'm always very like hard on myself, in everything. Like I'm very 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 critical of myself, and God's like give yourself some grace, like love yourself. When you look in the mirror, like love yourself, because I created you, and I don't
Mhm.
have a problem with my creation. Like I created you, and I love you. So like that really helped me learn how to love myself the right way and how to show up for myself. And it healed me from looking for love in all the wrong places, and guys and friends and everything. And it really just allowed me to look at God in the right perspective, and look at myself in the way that he created me, and to see me how he created me, and to know like to love myself, to really know what it means to love myself, and how to learn how to do that in the way that God desired for it to be.
Yeah, that's so good. And what you said is that you focused on what he was saying, which is the truth,
Mm-hmm.
instead of what everyone else was saying, or instead of what you were saying to yourself. Does does my internal monologue, does my internal thoughts match what the Father is saying about me,
Mm-hmm.
the Lord is saying about me? If it doesn't, then I have to correct it.
Yeah.
And that has been a journey for me too, because I'm very much an overthinker.
Very much.
I'm very much in my head. So I understand the back and forth of like, okay, I have this thought and this thought and this thought, but you do have control over your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts. You do have control over the things that you tell yourself. So choose to align your thought process, your verbal monologue to yourself. Choose to align that to what the Lord is saying to
Mm-hmm.
you, and see how that really does change your life. And I think we have this idea kind of secularly of like affirmations, but
Mm-hmm.
there's something about having what the Lord said about you being rooted in your heart that brings life in a different way than just a regular affirmation,
Yeah,
because
and it makes such a
it
difference.
makes such.
I'll be like there'll be like things I'll say in my head or like just like random thoughts, and God will be like, "Did I say that?" And I'm like, "Oh,
Oh.
okay,
Actually,
all right."
now that you say it, I don't think you said.
Like, no, you didn't. You're like, okay.
The more that you do it, the easier it becomes. And some
Mm-hmm.
days are easier than others. I
Yeah.
will be honest about that. Days are easier than others, and that's where solid community comes in place, where you have friends who are reminding you about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so key too. Can you talk a little bit about how your community, how your support system has also been so key in you walking in your calling?
They always remind me whether like I don't even be asking for it. They're like, yeah, like I don't know if she's on her mind. One of my best friends, she's like, yeah, I can't wait for your ordination, and I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, they're always reminding me, like, you can pray, you prophesy, like, all of these things, and just like being able to remind me and affirm me when I'm being hard on myself, like I'm able to.
Mhm.
Before, when I was younger, like would isolate or not share when I'm like struggling with something or like dealing with being hard on myself, but now I'm able to be open and be like, hey, like I'm having a hard time, and then they'll be able to remind me like, well, the enemy is a liar, like all of these things, and also know what God said about you, like who He's created you to be. You are this, like that's not going to change,
Yeah.
like, and just having that support, having like friends that pray for you and friends that like are listening to God also like on your behalf really makes a difference, and that can uphold you and like be there for you as a shoulder to lean on when you're not having a good day, but also be like, all right, you're not having a good day, you have the day, but then tomorrow we're gonna get up and we're gonna push forward and we're gonna try again.
Mhm.
So yeah, it really makes a difference, the community that you have.
That's so good. And we spoke about before how, when you released your book, you had some people who had to fall off.
Mm-hmm.
But the Lord made sure that you had a support system, a community in place who could still support you in the direction in which you were going. So even as for the people watching and watching the replay, even as you're releasing relationships, and we don't talk enough about like relationship breakups too,
Mm-hmm.
friendship breakups, excuse me. It's a lot of like romantic ones, but you have
Yeah,
to grieve a lot
you
of
do.
friendship.
Like, I thought you were gonna be the godparents to my children. Like, you have to grieve the friendships that you thought were gonna be there forever,
And
and the ones that end unexpectedly that you didn't think would end.
mm-hmm,
Um, it's grieving.
it's
It's a process. Just like you have to grieve a romantic relationship, like you said, or grieve the loss of a loved one or a job. You have to grieve friendships that aren't in your life anymore.
yeah. And it's so true, but the hope is and the joy is that the right people who are equipped to handle the places that you're going, and you're equipped to handle them too,
Mm-hmm.
because ships are mutual.
Right.
Um, they can be put in position now that those people have left, because the wrong people occupying the wrong positions are taking the seat of those who are
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So now there's a gap, but you don't know there's a gap because there are people there.
Right.
It's just wrong,
It's taking up unnecessary space.
unnecessary space. And it's like I I we don't have time for people in our lives who are taking up space and not pouring back into
Mm-hmm.
us as we pour into them. There's not enough time. Like we said, lives are on the
Yeah.
line. Like, I'm doing this because I know people need what I have. We're doing this because we know people need what we have. So
Mm-hmm.
as much as we can all get on the same page to align and go move forward into purpose, let's do that. So that's so good. For our last kind of couple minutes, I want you to talk about your book that you have, your devotional that you have coming out. I don't know if you can release the name yet, but what inspired you to write it? What's the general theme? As much as you can talk about. Absolutely.
Okay. So, well, I'm gonna say the
Okay.
name, but so my
Don't
real
get
is
in trouble now with your publisher.
yeah. So the devotional is called "I'm Not Ashamed,"
Mm,
and originally it was uh during my like high school and college years. I had, and probably not probably, and still do to some degree, struggle with lust. And so a lot of the scriptures that I had used during that time of like high school and college to like really like meditate on and like help me get through were scriptures that are now in the devotional that I am going to publish. And like when I was writing the devotional and going through the scriptures, I realized like I wrote them down, but a lot of them I really didn't understand and really didn't have like the right context for. So I kind of like switched it up and then made it a devotional to like a little bit more general, just for people who struggle in general with whatever the struggle may be, not just lust, but it can be with perfection, it can be with identity, just whatever struggles we may have, and really just for people that want to overcome and want to be overcomers. So that's really what it's geared towards. It's a 21-day devotional, and it has a lot of different scriptures. There are affirmations that I have put in there. I had did a poll maybe about a month or so ago on social media, getting some of my followers' favorite scriptures. So some of those scriptures I have included in the devotional, and then there are like prayers in there, and like different little scenarios and spaces where you can like write out your own prayer, write out your own journal. I did put some journal prompts where I like give tasks for the reader to do, so you can like write out those things also. Yeah, hopefully I'm hoping to release it on Black Friday, but we'll see how that goes. I'm still working on like cover and all of those things, so yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Yay. And it's talking about what we've been discussing,
Mm-hmm.
not being ashamed of, your story and choosing to overcome despite what you've been through. That's so
Yeah.
amazing. So you said around Black Friday, it's still TBD.
Yes.
Make sure you follow Cassie, so that you can stay abreast of what's going on. This is book number 2. Um,
Yes, I did an anthology with actually the lady who's publishing the book. So that was the first, and then but this is the second of my own. Yeah.
Congratulations off the
Thank you.
press. Off the press. Okay, so in our last couple of minutes, I would just like I usually end these conversations off with this last question. What advice would you give to someone who is still debating on whether or not to say yes to their calling? What advice?
Um, I would say it like you go for it. We are too late in the game to be playing games.
Mhm.
Um, go for it. There are people that are waiting on you, on your voice, on your sound, on whatever it is, your book, your music, songs, writing, art, whatever it is. There are people that are waiting on you and that need you to say yes.
Mhm.
You may not always get it right the first time, but keep trying. I am, as a person who has failed at things before, being committed to trying again and knowing that God honors your try.
Mhm.
So I would say go for it, and you are needed, you are necessary. Do not let the devil tell you otherwise, because he is a liar. All he can do is lie. Um, but yes, I would say just do what you know the Lord is calling you to do. Do what He's asked you to do, and just obey quickly. And the reward, like you will receive the reward.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you will receive the
you
reward.
will.
That's so good because I feel like we think our sacrifices are nothing, but the truth is there is a level of fulfillment, there is
Mm-hmm.
a level of joy and peace and really fulfillment fulfillment that's on the other side of the yes.
Right. And it may not always be a physical reward, like, or something tangible, but like you said, joy, peace, just, that satisfaction within yourself, knowing, like, I obeyed God and that He's going to get the glory out of it. I feel that's a reward in and of itself. Like,
that's the reward. And yes, I truly do believe the Lord supplies us with everything that we need. So, of course, as we're obeying Him, we get,
right.
Things that we need, and even sometimes the things that we desire, the things that we want. But the ultimate reward, like you said, is that God's getting the glory, that people are being set free, that people get to know Him as a result of you saying yes. And that inner peace and fulfillment, I think, is priceless. Like, you can't put a price tag on peace.
Not at all.
There are people with billions of dollars who have peace.
Like, they are going crazy. They are absent of peace, absent of love, absent of joy.
And I'd rather have peace than any other material thing. I'd rather have joy I'd rather have love than any other material thing. And yes, there are some luxuries that come with it. But that comes with material things, but the inner peace that can't be rocked and can't be changed from our surroundings is it's priceless. So thank you for that encouragement to everybody. Absolutely say yes to your calling. No matter how difficult, the Lord will give you what you need. No matter how difficult it is to let go of certain relationships, there are other relationships on their way. No matter how difficult it is, you think, to actually say yes, all you have to do is say yes to the little things, and the little things start to add up to the big thing. So no matter what you think is a setback, it's not. Just say yes. So just say yes. Just say yes. One step at a time. One yes at a time. One day. And you can only imagine the person that you'll become in a year's time, just because you're supposed to say yes every day. And we're living reflections of that. I too did not expect myself to be any of it. And the Lord was like, psych, you are, and go.
Right.
It's like, okay. And having the right community, having coaches, having books that help me to process and walk through all of this is so necessary. Having resources like this content is so necessary so that we can keep going forward. So yes, Cassie, do you have anything left that you want to say to my audience, to your audience, before I end this?
No. I hope you guys all enjoyed the conversation. This was, I don't think I've ever done an IG live, so it's new to me. But
Thank you for being your first IG live. I do want to encourage you and say thank you for having the boldness and the courage to saying yes to releasing your story and your testimony. You don't know this, but you actually inspired me to write the book that I ended up writing as an anthology as well. I co-authored it, but when you shared the I'm trying to find the details of your story, I was like, oh, I can absolutely share the dark parts that I don't want people to hear. And you came at such a perfect time that helped me to have those conversations with my parents and everything. So thank you for saying yes and continuing to say yes, because you don't know whose lives you're changing, even in casual conversation. And I'm a witness of that. And I just want to say thank you. And I want you to keep going, because your voice is indeed necessary. And it is powerful, though it is gentle. It is, it is powerful. I'm trying to find the words. It is necessary. Is the best word I have for it now, and as the words come. But it is so necessary, because it doesn't look like what already exists.
Right.
And that's okay. There's already those people out there. There's
Right.
not a Cassie out there.
Yeah.
Cassie be out there to reach the people who don't respond to that tone, who don't respond to that message. We need you in everything that you are. So never, ever go back to the back again. You take your position in all that the Lord has called you to be,
Yeah.
and you do so in boldness and in courage because we need you. Yes.
Thank
So thank you.
you.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for coming live with me and sharing your story and being authentic. Thank you to everyone who joined this live. I hope that you received something from it. Absolutely leave comment. Yes, Jamila Adams said yes. Absolutely, you are needed, Cassie. Yes, yes, you
Thank you.
are. And make sure you follow Cassie to stay updated on her devotional. And you can follow me to stay up to date with what I have going on. This replay will be left up on my page, so you can go back and watch this whole conversation. Have a wonderful Monday. Make sure that you confront your calling and go. Peace, y'all.